How's it going, everybody? Thank you so much for coming out. Hopefully everyone's had a chance to file in, find a comfy spot, and we're going to chat about some motion design updates. Yeah. So I'm David Gralnick, Senior Product Specialist here at Epic Games. This is the part where I do this. There I am, desaturated. And let's push forward here a little bit, and let's chat and have some fun and get some questions answered, because I have a notepad. If anyone has any questions at the end, comments, concerns, I can write them down and action them. It's pretty cool. Technology. So let's push forward here. So for people who have never seen this stuff before, the motion design journey so far, our goal was to democratize the Unreal Engine through tooling and UX to cater to creative individuals in industries with little to no UE experience. Took a bit more than maybe we initially thought to accomplish that. It kind of requires a village to get that done. It's a lot of different tooling that goes into this tool set. And we're going to dig into some of it here. So let's take a look. We're going to talk about some recent industry usage. We're going to do a brief recap of 5.5's version of motion design for people who are coming at this kind of fresh. We're going to talk about some updates to cloners and effectors in 5.6, and the rest is pretty much 5.6 here. So the PSD import is something we're going to get into. For people who don't know that's coming at all, it'll be pretty cool. We have a new system called the scene state that I want to talk about. Data link, which is a system for doing a lot of cool stuff with live data. Modifiers, we have some updates to the modifier stack that I think everyone will appreciate. And we have a little something called the Motion Design Sample Project that I'm excited to announce here. And we'll talk more about that in approximately 35 minutes. So and then some 5.7 roadmap, because, I mean, we're all here to hear a little bit about the future as well, right? So let's start out with what we've gotten ourselves into lately. We've been a little bit busy, but we have some cool stuff to show from the community. So Fox Sports here, I'll run it in a second, but it is loud, but hopefully we got to be at the level in a good spot. Fox Sports ran the most recent Super Bowl, go Birds. They ran the most recent Super Bowl, a whole bunch of Unreal integration. Let's take a look.
Enjoy. It's Super Bowl 59 on Fox, the Kansas City Chiefs against the Philadelphia Eagles.
So Fox did a whole bunch of awesome virtual and AR graphics that were running while the game was being played. A lot of cool interstitial style stuff as well. So I'm gonna let some of that just show itself because it's neat. This whole Super Bowl was kind of New Orleans themed, hence the look and feel. Yeah, Fox is consistently upping their game with Unreal integration. This is a bit of a mixture of systems to accomplish this, and that's also something they do very well. Their pipeline is pretty advanced. So they have their, Scorebug, all that kind of stuff. That was in other software, but the actual overlay, like AR graphics like this, are all full Unreal. And this is just kind of a rip of all the neat stuff that they did for this Super Bowl. So I'm going to let that kind of play itself through here a little bit so you guys can get a feel. For those of the few of us probably who haven't watched it, it's a pretty high-rated event. I don't know if anyone's heard of it, but it's pretty popular. So that's Cletus sending me on to the next slide. But yeah, thanks so much, Fox Sports, for sending along that reel. And for those of you that do not know, that robot, his name is Cletus. He has a name. So there you go. Emissive Labs, Danny Tello, you're back there. I think I saw you over in the crowd somewhere. They were nice enough to submit a reel for us. They have a product called Venue 4D, and it's a really cool in-venue graphic system that runs. I'm going to talk ahead of this and then show the reel, because that's what I want to do, and I'm up here and I have the button. So essentially it's a packaged solution, and they can do hardware and control through an app that they have built. It's super cool, so let's show a little bit of what they're doing. So as you can see, they've got kind of your typical in-stadium graphics that you'd usually see up on the big screen to kind of get a call to action for the crowd, like let's go, bring some noise, all these kinds of fun things. Tons of branding opportunities that they built into this system, and that's super awesome. They're kind of already integrating this in different spaces and doing lots and lots of work with all kinds of different folks to even be able to package up some of this content so that it's easy to deliver to clients and kind of, easily distributable is kind of one of the key things that they do. So they got some universities that they're working with, all kinds of cool stuff like that. And you can see, like, whenever you're at a game, any sort of baseball game, football game, whatever, like, these are the kind of graphics that are always up. They're always used. And why not Unreal? Why can't Unreal be the one that's fueling all this and doing super cool dynamic stuff? And so that is the market that they're attacking. And I think they're doing a pretty damn good job at it. So there we go. Thank you so much for that Real Emissive Labs. And I'm going to add, I'm going to do a plug here because I'm here. Emissive Labs presents tomorrow, actually, at 4:30 a.m. in North Hall Room 4. So yeah, go say hi, and they're going to show you guys some cool stuff and answer any questions you have about their product. I almost said against their product, about their product. We're all very much for Emissive Labs' integration, to be clear. All right, next. Oh, 10:30 a.m. Is it? Oh, shit. 10:30 a.m. All right. Boom. Okay, so another cool company that we have using motion design kind of core to what they're doing. Have any of you guys heard of Zero Density? Anyone here? Yep. So they put together a nice reel for me. And I'm going to let that kind of play, and I'll just talk over it because there's a lot of cool stuff all in one spot. But the short version up front is that they are using motion design top to bottom for their tool set. Remote control, literally the material designer, everything, you name it, they're using it. So I'm going to let this thing play out. And what you're seeing here is some transition logic elements that they have up. You have some just kind of cool graphics that they put together, and they have this whole reel where they're showing stuff on the stage, and that's great. This is Lino. This is effectively using the Rundown API that we built, and they're doing a really great job with making it very templatized and doing kind of doing God's work, if you will, with the broadcast side of things where you have a fully working rundown system that is very broadcast standard. We weren't able to get to this level because it's just such a deep rabbit hole, but they went and did it, and it's performing great. As you can see, they're kind of transitioning through all these different graphics, and they're kind of showing, like, this is a great example here, actually, where they've got a lower third system. They have some, obviously, AR graphics that they're going to show in a little bit here. These are some full screens that they're showing off. And this is all running off their system, which is shown a little bit more here, where you can kind of build up your templates. So they're kind of bringing in all these different cutouts and all that kind of fun stuff to show. And yeah, like, essentially this kind of work is one of those solutions that broadcasters, they need so that they can get a proper, like, support from a company that's got their name on something. They can call them at any hour, and they'll be there to kind of work them through any problems that they have when they're trying to run a giant event. So Zero Density, thanks so much for that reel. You can't hear me right now, but you'll see it later, and thank you. So let's push this forward a little bit. So Jesse Patella over at Redefine VFX, he does a ton of awesome tutorial work and also just some great work in general. And he really embraced the motion design system. And let's go forward here. You can see here he's got a bunch of cloners, clones of like various buildings, just awesome effector work happening throughout this thing. And he's really kind of made use of the tool set in all kinds of ways, but this is just like a little rip that I have him make for me so I can just show off some of the more fun stuff. And a lot of the elements that you're seeing here are available for content in tutorial form that you can grab from him. He has multiple ways to do it. Some of it's free, some of it's kind of paid lessons sort of stuff, but all of it is awesome. So he's a good follow on YouTube. He puts out all kinds of really cool content on there, and he's always kind of pushing the motion design tool set like forward and kind of inspiring all of us devs and dev leaders to kind of push forward with this thing, because that's cool stuff. So that's the Redefined VFX reel from Jesse. Thanks so much for sending that along. Yeah. So let's briefly recap some UE 5.5, because, you know, again, for people here who aren't already all up in this system, this is a good way to kind of show some of what's on the plate before we get to the main course, which is 5.6. So let's take a look. Cloners and proximity effects got a pretty big push, and I didn't mean to use that, as a joke, but here's something that's using a push. As we move this effector around, you can see that it's pushing the clones out of the way. Can't script it any better than that. So as I move this effector through the space, you're going to see all the clones are kind of moving, wiggling around and moving and pushing out of the space. So these kinds of graphics and these sorts of elements are something that's, this will require a whole lot of work to keyframe, and a whole lot of system power usually in other systems to actually do in real time. For cloners and proximity effects, the stuff is relatively inexpensive. You can crank that clone count up pretty high and not really experience much performance degradation. Let's take a look here. We have some collisions as well. I'll just let this one play because it's just a cool video. So what you're kind of seeing is all of our clones are effectively moving around. We have the ability to enable some particle physics on these because at the end of the day, this is all based on the Niagara system. So cloners are, at their very core, is Niagara. And at the very center of each of these little spheres is kind of the impact point, if you will. So as we move this controller around, we're able to knock all that stuff out of the way because the controller is acting as an effector that is shoving things all around, which is a lot of fun to play with. And yeah, it's just great for design. Move this one forward here. All right. This is an exciting feature that, who here has used the Material Designer? I'm just kind of curious. That's awesome. So the Material Designer got a big upgrade in 5.5. You'll see here. We can now do, or we can then do PBR materials with it. So we aren't limited to what we were prior. This is now, as we drag these maps in, we'll populate our material, our little material mesh there with all of this cool stuff here. All the channels are set. You got your roughness, your emissive, all that good stuff. And you can also freely change it and modify it. So we're going to change the base color property there, the roughness, and just kind of toggle things around a bit to show how you can really modify this stuff in real time. And honestly, this is one of the features where motion design, a big goal, like I said at the very beginning, was to democratize Unreal Engine. And typically, building materials is a bit of a hump that people have to get over when they're first getting into this. But with a tool like this, where anyone who's used any layer-based product, I won't mention names, but you can probably imagine in your head, would be very familiar with this sort of workflow and could jump right in and start getting creative with pretty little additional learning. And that's kind of our goal here. So as you can see here, they're kind of sliding. We're changing the roughness on this guy, and not a whole lot of actual material changes are necessary. However, I won't show it in this video, but you can actually export this as a full material that operates exactly like you'd expect from the rest of the engine, and that's really great. Let's push forward. So another thing for Material Designer that's super cool is we added Material Designer effects. So for any of these layers, right now we have a video clip that's kind of currently paused, but we can add all kinds of cool shader effects to it. So in this case, we have a kind of a pixelate effect. These are all shaders that you can freely add. We've supplied several with this to start, but you can always add more yourself and kind of create your own cool stuff. But what's neat about this is this sort of effect that we're running is very inexpensive. Especially in engine. Like this is the kind of stuff you can play out and not have to do any performance profiling and worrying about that kind of thing. It just kind of comes with the territory. So you can really explore freely and kind of get a feel for everything. So as we're kind of adding to this, we're going to add another layer, and you'll hopefully see it clearly. I can't from here because this monitor is kind of far from me. But you can add, essentially we're doing a color shift there. Yep. And we're going to kind of boost that up so it's got a bit more of a glow to it. And then on top of that, we're going to add a noise pattern here, spoilers. And then we're going to do an add on that so you can start seeing how you can start layering this stuff up and getting nice effects for relatively cheap performance. And that's kind of the name of the game when it comes to a lot of these tools. Because broadcast, which is, it's a good chunk of our market, they really need things to run at 60 frames per second consistently. And there really is no way around that. If you're rendering content, you can get away with more, but broadcast has a pretty stringent requirement for 59.94, depending on your region, I suppose. And then animators, super cool feature. Essentially, I'm just going to let this one play. What you're able to do with animators are, let's say you're trying to do something with this controller and you want this thing to just be rotating in space, but you don't want to commit to a sequence. Usually that's unheard of in Unreal. With animators, you can literally tell this thing, hey, what's the minimum rotation? What's the maximum rotation? And this thing will just keep doing that animation until you want it to not do that animation. So this works great, especially if you're trying to do something like a hotel lobby or some sort of installed thing where you just want something kind of just being cool in the background. I recently went to some concerts where they had some kind of event just stuff looping. It wasn't using this yet, but that's one of those opportunities where I saw that these are moments like this where they just need things happening where the audience can chill. But what's cool beyond that is if you want to, it's hidden by the procedural animator text that I put down there in a very strategically poor spot. This is also something that you can do where you can get more of a kind of Spideyverse, kind of every other sort of animation. So that's kind of a fun effect. But when you're done with it, you're like, but David, I want to run this with a sequence. I don't want this to just run forever. You can do that. So there's an add to sequence button up there. It'll appear at the bottom, and you'll get the same effect, but now it's just playing out in kind of a linear fashion. You can do whatever you want with that as well. So if you need to time something, totally fine. And you still get the benefits of not having to keyframe all of that stuff. You're really just keyframing the track. All right. Now we're going to get nerdier. And that's fine, right? Anyone here familiar with transition logic as a concept? Okay, we got 2, 3, great. All right, so transition logic was our first crack at layer-based transitions. What that means to people here who aren't as familiar is you'll have graphics that go up on television where you'll have elements like an upper left graphic, a bottom graphic there where it says high expectations for next season. And you need these elements to change independent of each other. So you're going to have your page system on the left. What you're seeing on the left here is kind of our rundown. Each of these is a kind of setup where you're going to set your text, you're going to save it to a page, and you're going to take the next one if you're the person operating the program. And what you're going to get is transitions depending on where you're changing the elements. So right there you just got reserved tickets soon updated, but nothing else changed. So you're kind of basically there where you can operate a broadcast with this sort of tool. And that's super great. And what I'm demonstrating here is there's a bunch of little animations that you have to build to get to that point. So I have like the top line change that I'm kind of scrubbing there a little bit. I have the overall headline change, the global in and out of the graphic when you want to take the whole thing off. And what's cool here, I wish I had a pause button on this, is usually this would require you to have 3 discrete levels. A level for the pop-up, a level for the talent to here section, and a separate level for the bottom. A little bit cumbersome. So what we did is we said, hey, what if this is all one level and we just tag the individual areas that need to be separate layers so that you don't have it to chase around as many assets all the time. So that's what you're seeing here. This is kind of the transition logic kind of 2.0 that we put out. There's more work to be done, but I think that this moved in a pretty solid direction, and there will be even more spoilers to later slides for 5.7. Actually 5.8, I should say. All right, let's click forward. Masking. This is a really short one, and it's just something I want to make sure people here know about if you don't already know about it. We have a pretty easy to use masking system. So as you can see, we have a This Week in Motion. There's some stuff passing through it. This Week in Motion is currently acting as the mask, and that little ball is basically just using it as, hey, I'm being masked by this thing, so I'm only going to appear where that stuff is. And yeah, so masking, not the most complicated topic, but a very important element to have in any package like what we're offering. All right, that's 5.5. A lot of stuff in 5.5. On to 5.6. All right, so click. We have a bunch of new options for cloners and effectors. Let's just go through this, and I'll do my best to give context to each of these and do them justice, all right? So the delay is a property we were a lot of what you're about to see, the rest of this whole presentation is a lot of it's user-requested stuff. People were wanting a way, there we go, to delay what they're doing. So right now you're seeing the effector. This is nothing particularly new to our offering. But what's happening now is, as you drag it through, nice, you get a delay to it, so you get a ripple that will follow it around. And what's even more fun, if you add another effector, or another actor that's being affected, I should say, they'll interact with each other and bounce off each other and do cool stuff like that. These are things that would typically take a fair amount of keyframing and work, and if even that, or you simply will not be able to do it in real time. This is all real time, performance, good to go. Another little Easter egg here, I'm gonna let this play itself out a little bit, is, well, this is another cool thing. So this is letting us essentially mask this out by doing a cull effect. But what you're noticing is those clones, those aren't like a solid color. Those appear to be almost being inherited from some sort of texture. That's new. So I'm gonna move forward one. I'm gonna show that fully here. So spoilers. What you were seeing there is we're able to actually map media to the clones now, and it'll spread across them evenly. So you can have video, you can have a texture. So I'm gonna let this one play out, and it's gonna have a pretty sudden effect. The impact, I should have done those slides in reverse, because the impact is greater here, but whatever, we're all friends here. So I'm displacing it, it'll stretch it up. This is kind of what you typically kind of see to some degree, but you're getting displacement and you're getting color. So as you drag that image through, there's a texture that's kind of sending these pixels across. You can up your clone count and displace everything. And it gets even kind of more interesting from there, because like I said, one of these examples in here actually shows off when you have it mapped to something that's video as opposed to just a still texture, so you immediate texture. So I think that's the next one coming up here. Oh, and you can also invert things, so this will show that in a moment as well. There you go. So you can invert your displacement. There's a whole bunch of options to play with there. That's kind of the thing about our tool set. We give tons and tons of options so you guys can hopefully get a good amount of creativity and free expression while you're building in here. We try not to be overly restrictive. It's kind of a thing. All right, let's see. So I quickly just want to show the part where video plays through it. Coming up soon, or I skip forward. There we go, it's coming up here. So this is where it gets particularly fun. So we're going to paste that in. And you can see there's a sequence running. And that sequence is literally a video clip that's playing through that cloner. And you can basically see how you can do all kinds of cool music visuals with this. I mean, honestly, it's pretty unlimited as to what you can do with any of this stuff. But this is particularly fun because, again, cloners are relatively inexpensive as long as you don't go insane with your clone counts. And adding something like this property to it is also incredibly performant. All right, so the next thing, displacement and textured color. This is just kind of showing the whole sandwich at the same time really fast. So this is something where we have these cloners, and they're undulating in the middle here. They're pushing the ground to create a rippling effect, which is fun, of course. And then I'm going to use the sphere, there we go, and it's using a coal to basically make sure that that area, the pancake, if you will, is getting a bit more rippled. And then I'm going to go in, and I'm going to set some displacement up so that the ground is receiving the kind of dirt texture. It's like a sandy desert dirt texture thing. So now it's getting a bit of an offset from that. And on top of that, you can texture it as I kind of showed before, where you can actually apply a texture to it. You're not just limited, as like before, to a solid color that you pick. You can actually set that channel to accept a proper texture to it. So that's next, and then I'll scooch on.
So if I go in and do that,
I hear myself talking. That's weird. So I'm going to move forward. And so let me move forward here. So yeah, that's all fully textured. This is a fun one. Not that everything before wasn't fun, but I think you guys are going to get a kick out of this. I almost don't want to explain it. Let's see. I'll explain it after. I won't leave you hanging. Screw it. So what you're seeing here is a cool build-on effect. This is using what's called the free placement cloner. It's not quite a cloner as you'd expect. You assign it, and then you start loading actors into it and position them wherever you want. You can essentially then wipe your effector through it and just start placing them all over the level where you told them to go, and they'll pop into place. You can see how this would be super useful for any sort of, I don't know, like a marketing sort of thing where you're trying to show, like, I don't know, a housing development's being built, and here's all the houses. There's another cool use. So we have this battle bus that has, I believe it's 600 meshes that makes this thing up. It's a little Lego battle bus. We're using the same thing where it's all exactly where it's supposed to be in the environment. And as we push the effector through it, and we're going to increase the size of this thing a lot. We had a version of this where it was full color, but I like the grayscale better because it just kind of shows off like just how much is going on in there, because it was kind of a solid color. So as I bring this through, you can see that it's displacing everything. And this is kind of a soft displacement, but as the effector leaves, things return to their original positions, which is utterly great. And we're going to increase this quite a bit to really give the battle bus some trouble. And then we're going to drag it through there. Same kind of thing, but you can see how this would be just super fun for any sort of build that you're trying to show off, or I don't know, if you want to just blow up a house, whatever. So PST importer is kind of the next core feature that we've put into this. A lot of people have requested this. We've requested this, and we finally got a chance to do this first kind of first kind of go at it. All right. So we have, before I play this, we have a PSD here. That's our own kind of marketing material that we put out before. This is like the rise of the Midas cup. And pretty standard kind of design. But, you know, what if you just want to bring it into motion design and you want to bring it in where it maintains all the layers and keeps everything intact? Well, that is now possible. So we have a PSD that I'm dragging in off camera. And it's itemizing all the individual elements there. Now this is rasterizing all the individual elements. So in this version here, what we have right now, it rasterizes all the pieces and brings them in. So I'm gonna drag it into the viewport.
Layer effects intact too?
Layer effects are, we tested a bunch of them. A bunch of them are working, but there's probably still some things in there that we have to check into. But you'll see here, under all the different elements, they get brought in. And we can do one little fun thing with them for now, other than how cool it is to just do this. We can offset all the layers. I'm going to move the camera over because that, honestly, that view didn't get it done. I want, you know, it's cooler than that. So if we go to the side, and yeah, there you go. Now you can really see them wobbling in and out. So you can do a lot of fun stuff with that. And in addition, if you just want to offset them a bit and not do a whole wobbly animation, that's your prerogative. So it gets a little bit deeper than that in a couple ways. So I have to see if it does smart objects. I was just testing it with pretty standard PSDs that we had, but that is a good call out. So what you're seeing here is one view of this where it actually creates a material that has all these things, a material designer material, I should say. I wobble about in this part of the recording, but we'll come back to it in a second. But the outcome is that what you're going to get is, how many people here have used the material designer a bunch already? I'm assuming anyone who's played with it has gotten a material designer. Okay. So you'd recognize this view very well. Let me jump back out and put a rectangle in there so we can actually set it up proper. And we're going to drag that and set it to material designer and drag what we just did in there. And we're going to do a little thing there. Damn it, David. There we go. And there is our full material designer material that we dragged in and just did the PSD importer with. And we're actually able to go material designer and make tweaks to all those individual layers that you're seeing. So let's see here, go into the viewport here so I can actually show it. I'm going to scale it up so it's not microscopic. And there you go. And I'm going to go and just kind of wiggle around some of the settings in here. So the emissive color, for example, I'm going to drag that guy down. And I believe I pick Midas as my target to change here. So I'm like, Midas, you simply won't do in that spot. I need to shift you around, mostly for this presentation. So we're going to grab onto Midas. Move the whole thing around. I missed. There we go. Grab him on his own and shift around his position. There you go. So you can actually reposition the stuff from your PSDs. So you're not grounded entirely to what the PSD gives you. You get the elements. You can do stuff with those elements. We'll talk more about the future a little bit later. But yeah, so PSD import, please try it out. As everyone knows, 5.6 is out. So please try it. All right, so the scene state, score bugs, tickers, and beyond. This is exciting for hopefully everyone here. I don't know. Let's find out. So building score boxes, score bugs, all those sorts of tickers, live graphics like that is kind of a whole other use case that transition logic doesn't quite cover on its own. You want something that's got a whole lot more customization in the level, at least in my experience. I should have explained a little bit. My background, I was at Fox Sports for many years, and I was building all kinds of graphics there, real-time graphics, and one of them was score bugs, tickers, and all that kind of fun stuff. And one of those things you need when you're building those sorts of graphics is the ability to constantly try things and make sure nothing is wonky as you go, because that's kind of how, you just need to be able to do it. So you can test all the new functionality, make sure things don't mess with other things, and you need a way to visualize that as well. So what this allows for, hit play here. There we go. There we go. So this gives you several state machines that are managing this graphic. I'll bring the graphic back up in a second. You have a state machine that handles a score change. You have a state machine that handles a down and distance change, a touchdown, all the things that go into that. And we have this beautiful diagnostic view that will highlight the different states as you're running into them. So you can actually see what's going on and kind of troubleshoot your own stuff as you're building it. And that's a highly important part of building any of these things, is to be able to quickly diagnose problems and also just get a feel for the system as you're building it. So I'm going to show you here an example of a down and distance change. So I have some exposed properties here. This is all from remote basically, you can do all of your exposed properties from here first, and then you can send them to remote control, so you can send it there and then run down, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm going to go in here and adjust this. And I'm going to show kind of a down distance change, how you can diagnose it first and just make sure it's doing what you want. So down distance popped up, but I want to change it to something else. So I'm going to put, I forget, it's first and 20 or something. Or first and 15. And by just hitting the run event, you can see it triggers everything in the tree, and you can kind of get a feel for what's going on there. But when you're actually ready to try pushing that event properly, that's where you're going to go in here, pick your down and distance change that you've created, change your value to something else, and you're going to do a proper push event. Same idea, but this is more of a official thing that when you go into your actual remote control and trigger things, this is what's going to happen. So to show off another example, timeouts, right? So in this case, I set this to 2 timeouts. It kills one of the lights on Philadelphia's side. And I do it again, it gets rid of the second timeout. These are all things that are just mandatory to any sort of score bug. Now, what's all this without having a proper scoring event, like a touchdown? So if I go in and I set my touchdown, I set that to team 1 for now. Set your load value to 6, because that's how many points you get for a touchdown, and push the event. You get the whole animation that you have timed exactly as you want it to be timed, so that it runs the celebration and then rolls the score. And that's kind of a big part of how this all needs to happen. Timing is kind of everything, right? So I did a team 2. It grabbed the color corner. There's a whole lot of stuff in here. If anyone wants this sample, by the way, I'm more than happy to just give it out. This is fully sanitized team logos that I can give out because, I mean, look at them. They're not amazing. They're helmets with color. So I'm going to go in here, and I want to show, there's some events you have to make sure that you set up along the way. But at the end of the day, this is there anything else in here? I'm trying to remember. I don't believe so. Because, so this is the scene state. Please experiment with it. Like I said before, give me some feedback, because our team, it's in a solid spot right now, but there's definitely some UX steps that we would love to kind of hear from you guys, like where are you getting hung up and all that kind of stuff. That would be very useful for me. So let's push forward. Data link. Okay, so data link is particularly fun for me. This is highly customizable data fetching, hence the text. Now, what this means is when you have a graphic, let's push forward here, I'll show you. So I have an element that is a large table that would need a bunch of stats that would need to be manually inserted by the operator. Not a lot of fun to type in all of those stats and then save them to a page. Not fun. And it's even more not fun when it all has to actually match and be correct against whatever data you're pulling from. What's much better is if you can actually pull from something like, let's see it. Let's move up here. So I'm kind of showing there's a function there to actually call each of those rows. And where we're pulling this from, I'm going to go off screen and bring it in, is this football Google Sheet that I created, where there's a team name, wins, losses, win percentage, all that good stuff. These stats are made up. Please don't check them. And we have this whole system here that we can essentially link all of those elements in that Google Doc to, or Google Sheet, Google Sheet. And here is the system that you use to set it all up. So you need to link it to your Google Sheet. You need to then map all those rows to parts of the Google Sheet so it knows what to pull for which element. And that's kind of shown here. You have your team city, team name, all that good stuff. And this will link up to that. Now, let's go forward. While I kind of show a little bit of this right now is dealing in archival stats first, historical stats. So if you're trying to pull what happened even a couple minutes ago, you should be able to do that, and that's a great use case. What we're pushing forward in the future is to actually do live stats. So that is, a score changes in real time, you're good to go. It's gonna properly assign it and pull it and do all the good stuff. In that case, it would be more of a push situation. What I'm showing here is kind of all of the remote control that needed to be set up for this kind of level. Unfortunately, that part still needs to be done because, well, what if you don't want this particular page to pull from live data or archival data, I should say, and you want to actually do it yourself? You can absolutely still do that. Remote control is kind of the heart of this thing. You need to make sure things are remote controlled and all that good stuff ahead of time. And then you have this data table actor. That is where you kind of do all of your mapping to your field IDs and all that good stuff. Hopefully, people here are familiar with the concept of what the IDs are, but essentially, for each row and each item, like row 1 is all the E's, say E101, E102, E103, for like the soaring birds, the winds lost, all that good stuff, so you can customize your text from remote control. And so that's kind of all done here, and that's all what's honored when you bind it to the actual data that you're pulling from in your data source of choice. This also works with data tables, so it doesn't have to be a Google Sheet, it doesn't have to be an HTTP request. It will also be able to pull from data tables for people who would rather do it that way and kind of keep it more internal to their project. So that's totally an option. So that's data link. Now, Material Designer got a fun upgrade called the media layer. The media layer, it was already possible to play out video in here, but we wanted to make it a bit simpler in some ways and actually be able to assign it in Material Designer. So I'm going to play this out. And as we kind of roll through, I should have trimmed this one. But as you kind of go, I have this BG explode that I created. It's just like a little clip that I found for a cool explosion animation. And as you can see there, there's a new customizable option in your Material Designer material where you can add this media layer right there. So it's called media. And I'm going to go in and show you what this created. The motion design template is having a bad day. It exploded, and that's apparently the guy who did it. I mean, he showed up right after. I don't think we have to do much investigation into this. He's standing right there. So we've got that running, and effectively, I have a video running in the foreground, I have a video running in the background, and that's all fully, stackable because of the nature of how Material Designer works in the first place with its layers. And I didn't actually have to do much other than just layer it correctly and make sure that we are kind of following all the rules and guidelines. The beauty of this, and I just went down there at the bottom and showed it there, is that this is actually running on a new media option that we have called Protron. Worth checking, if you can see here as I'm scrubbing this, it's like a highly scrubbable way to use ProRes. So you guys should definitely check that out. I think you'll get a lot of good use out of it, especially if you're trying to scrub video and you're finding sometimes that when you're scrubbing, it's not quite keeping up with your playhead. That might be a whole lot better now, as I'm kind of showing here. I'm just kind of scrubbing that thing, and it's very accurate, which is super fun. So let's see here. Okay, so this is, again, a super useful feature that I've been asked for several times now. We have a lot of teams that they have their team elements for all their teams, and you have logos like, I don't know, the Patriots, for example. They have a wide logo. Then you have like the Cowboys, their logo is square. And you're like, I really need this geometry that this thing is on to change its shape, but maintain its height, because we've mapped things where 512 is our fixed height, and then we have variable width, or vice versa. I've mostly seen variable width, fixed height. So what I have here is that the Unreal Engine logo, hopefully this is playing. It's not, there we go. Unreal Engine logo, which is very square. I'm gonna go ahead and change this out for a wide version. It still maintains the exact same space vertically and is able to freely change horizontally. I'm gonna show off that modifier here in a second. So I have the adaptive width and adaptive height options. Adaptive width is probably gonna be the 90% use case here, but we did wanna offer both. And here's the assets that I'm using. So this is a, like I said, 512 height, and this is whatever, 1260 something. It's like an eye test. But yeah, so you can freely go back and forth between those to see. And yeah, that's effectively what this is doing. You can picture this saving, I don't know, hopefully a lot of time for anyone here who's doing broadcast sports graphics or anything along those lines. So yeah, that is our size to texture modifier. A tiny but mighty feature that at least I was very excited about. Can I get a hand? Thank you. Like it sizes your textures. That's great. Okay, thank you. I should ask for that more often. All right, so motion design sample. Okay, I'm excited about this one, so hopefully this lands. All right, we're doing a sample. We've been asked for a long time, can we get a proper motion design sample so that people can just jump into this stuff and see what's up? So I'm going to show this and then I'll explain. All right, let's play this forward. It's a short little 30-second ditty, but this is about pretty early in the process, but they've got it in a pretty awesome spot already, I gotta say. Full motion design. There's no audio, that's a shame. There we go. It's not letting this one speak for itself, so kind of full slabs, full screens. A score box that's animating as you kind of expect. All the layers are kind of done correctly in Material Designer. You've got all the elements you typically want from a sports package. This is a pretty early in the process. There's a lot of deliverables left to hit, but we are working with an amazing company on this. Capacity, anyone familiar with Capacity? No? Yay! They are the ones who, they've done a ton of awesome stuff, but they're also the ones who did our previous graphics sample back before kind of motion design was really a big thing. And they did the Rocket League sample that we'd put out a while ago. And so we got them back. I was very excited to have that. And they're building a full graphics package that uses motion design, transition logic. It's got everything. It's going to have all the things enabled in it to make sure that anyone who has any questions or wonders, how the hell do I use some of these features? Look no further than this tool set. Soccer is the focus in this sample. And it'll give you a solid base. You'll be able to reskin this, do whatever you want with it. Change the player portrait to whatever you want. It could be a character, a portrait, a photo, whatever. All of this is going to be free on Fab. And we're looking at it's probably in a couple months here. This is, like I said, relatively early in the process, but I just wanted to show it to you guys here because I'm excited about it. Is anyone here kind of stoked? Awesome. All right. So the future roadmap, or the crystal ball, as I thought was clever when I wrote this. All right. So 5.7 features on the horizon. A big thing is solidity for the core broadcast functionality. 5.7 is where we're going to be what's kind of called production ready. So things need to be stable, things need to be clean, right? So data link, transition logic, scene state are going to get increased polish, usability, and simplification across the board. So any spots where there's rough edges, where you guys feel like when you're trying this stuff, like this has too many steps, this is confusing, please do let me know. Like, I have a notepad, and I'm not afraid to use it. So hit me up. We're going to explore PSD import beyond rasterized layers. That's what I kind of mentioned earlier. Right now, when you bring it in, you're a bit locked. You have layers, you can do cool stuff with them, but you can't really change the text. Like, what if we could actually recognize the text that's brought in as text and be like, oh, I'm going to make a page now and change all that, move it around. Yeah. So it's something exciting, right? That saves a ton of design time, saves a ton of time for the teams that, at least in my past, it was pretty common that the design team, you'd have a totally separate team that's on the Photoshop side. They do all the stuff. They give it to you, and you're like, recreate it. You're like, oh, cool. Okay, that'll be fun. In this case, it might save a ton of cycles on that kind of thing. So yeah, that's a thing that's coming. Hopefully, we're going to do some research and see what we can do. Robust text for increased design power. Text is extremely important for any sort of broadcast graphic. I think anyone can agree to that. It's extremely important to any motion design graphic, any cloner style, anything. We did a major text refactor in 5.6 that effectively took what we had was called the AvaText actor. We also had a static text actor. They kind of, or 3D text, I should say, text 3D. We realized that now is probably the time to finally combine those things together. And so what we did is we took some cycles and did that. And now that we've done that, I actually wrote that on the thing. The next target is using dynamic mesh text to draw all this stuff instead, or not instead, as a rendering option. And then we also want to do style presets, formatted text, and text transformation. So formatted text meaning, let's say you want to have stylized text where you have, I don't know, it says like, this presentation is absolutely fantastic, but I want absolutely to have a different font. I want it to be a different color that's fixed, and you can kind of set all that stuff up. We're going to try and get that in under the dynamic mesh text option. Control improvements. So remote control is extremely useful, and but it's got some rigging things that we've kind of heard from clients, and also internally we've thought about, where we just want to make better assumptions to simplify the experience in general. And so in addition to that, we also want to simplify playback control of video. We want to create globalized styles that can keep team designs on brand. And we want to retool the RC interface, which is kind of what I'm referring to now. So right now, if you expose a property, you're kind of got three things going on your screen for people who don't know. When you expose it, okay, on the left, there's your property you just exposed. You can change that, and that'll work perfectly fine. The problem is, if you're trying to save it to a page in your rundown, for example, you actually have to drag it in to an actual controller so a controller can deal with this property, and you assign it a field ID and all that good stuff. It kind of feels like, why do I have to do both of those things? Why, when I expose it, it should just automatically assign it to a controller and save me the extra step. And so that's something we're going to try our hand at and see if we can just kind of simplify things a little bit. So that's one example. We want to focus on support between features. So data link, scene state, and TL, these are all awesome things on their own. Obviously, data link, with what you guys just saw that it can do by pulling from spreadsheets and all those kinds of things, that needs to work well with scene state, it needs to work well with TL. And so we're going to make sure that all of that stuff just plays nicely, so that the questions of like, will this work with that? Well, hopefully will not happen. It'll just work. And then the last thing is just let me know. If there's any features that you guys find that are missing in motion design, I'm here with a notepad, as I've said. Not afraid to use it. So yeah, thanks so much.